The silence in our suburban home in Naperville, Illinois, used to be a comfort. It was the sound of a life well lived, the hum of the high-end refrigerator, the distant rustle of the oak trees in the yard, the steady ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. But lately that silence had changed. It had become heavy, thick with the things my wife, Sarah, and I weren't saying to each other. My name is David Miller, and for 12 years, I believed I was the luckiest man in the Midwest. Sarah was a force of nature, sharp, ambitious, and possessed of a beauty that seemed to sharpen rather than fade with time. She was the woman I'd built everything for. But then came the Summit for Corporate Excellence in Phoenix. Sarah had been gunning for the senior VP position at her firm for 3 years, logging 80-hour weeks and missing our anniversaries for board meetings. When she got the invite to the summit, I tried to be the supportive husband. I bought a bottle of expensive Napa Valley Cabernet to celebrate, but as I poured the wine, she didn't look at me. She looked at her laptop. "David, the travel budget is a mess this year," she said, her voice clinical and detached. "The company policy is room sharing for anyone below the executive level. To save on overhead, I'm bunking in a suite with Marcus. He's the new regional director." Marcus. The name felt like a physical weight in the room. He was charismatic, 10 years younger than me and recently divorced. Before we go deeper into this story, take a second and hit that subscribe button. Give this video a like and let us know where you're watching from. And I'm curious to know how far these stories travel here at Family Secrets and Revenge. "It's a suite, David." "Don't make that face," she said, finally looking up. Her eyes were cold, like she was defending a legal brief rather than talking to her husband. Two completely separate bedrooms, a shared living area, and a kitchenette. It's purely professional. If I request a private room, I look like I'm not a team player. I look like I'm high maintenance. And in this economy, that's a death sentence for a promotion. You want me to get this, don't you? I wanted her to be happy, but more than that, I wanted to trust the woman I had shared a bed with for over a decade. I watched her pack. Usually for business trips, she packed charcoal gray suits and sensible heels. This time, and I saw her tucking away silk nightgowns, the deep emerald one I'd bought her for our honeymoon, and lace undergarments that hadn't seen the light of day in months. When I asked her about them, she didn't even blink. "The Biltmore has a world-class spa and a heated mineral pool, David. I'm going to be networking at all hours. I need to feel put together even when I'm off the clock." I stood in the doorway, the smell of her expensive perfume mingling with the scent of my own growing dread. Every logical explanation she gave felt like a brick being added to a wall between us. The policy sounded like a flimsy shield, a corporate excuse for a personal indulgence. But how do you call your wife a liar when she hasn't even left the house yet? The morning of her departure, the Illinois sky was a flat, bruised gray. I drove her to O'Hare International Airport in my SUV, the heater humming a low, anxious tune against the morning chill. Usually we'd talk about our plans for when she got back, maybe a dinner at that steakhouse she liked or a weekend trip to Lake Geneva. But today she was buried in her phone, her thumbs flying across the screen as she exchanged urgent emails with her team. "Is Marcus on this flight too?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "He's meeting me at the gate," she replied without looking up. "We have a 3-hour flight to go over the North Region projections. It's going to be a grind, David. I'll probably be exhausted when I land, so don't worry if I'm hard to reach." As we pulled up to the terminal, she checked her reflection in the visor mirror, touching up her lipstick. She gave me a quick, just dry peck on the cheek, the kind of kiss you give a distant relative at a funeral, and pulled her rolling bag from the trunk. I watched her walk through those sliding glass doors, her silhouette merging with the crowd of travelers. I sat in the idling car for 5 minutes, a sense of leaden certainty settling in my gut. Something was ending, and I was the only one who hadn't been told. Returning to an empty house in the middle of a workday is a surreal experience. The sun was trying to peek through the clouds, hitting the family photos on the mantelpiece. There was one of us in Maine, windblown and laughing. There was another from our wedding day, where I looked like I'd won the lottery, and she looked like she'd found her home. I stared at those photos until they didn't look like us anymore. They looked like strangers. And I went to the kitchen and saw the company travel policy folder she'd accidentally left on the counter. I opened it, my heart hammering against my ribs. I flipped through the pages of fine print regarding per diems and mileage. Then I found the section on lodging. All employees at the manager level and above are entitled to private single-occupancy rooms. Room sharing is only suggested for junior associates during large-scale training events. The air left my lungs. She had lied. Not a small lie, not a "I'll be home late" lie, but a calculated, structural deception. Why? If Marcus was just a colleague, why invent a policy to be near him? I felt a surge of nausea. I needed to know more, but I knew that if I called her now, she would just double down. I needed proof. That night, the house felt cavernous. Like every floorboard creak sounded like a footstep. I kept my phone on the nightstand, waiting for the "I landed safe" text. It didn't come until 9 p.m. Landed. Check-in was a nightmare. In the suite now. Marcus and I are just finishing up some prep work for tomorrow's 8 a.m. presentation in the common area. Exhausted. Talk tomorrow. Love you. Love you. Those two words felt like a mockery. I opened the iPad we shared for home movies and photos. It was still synced to her cloud account. I knew I was crossing a line, but she had already erased the line herself. I opened the messaging app. There were dozens of messages with a contact saved as M. I requested the suite with the balcony facing the mountains. Just like you wanted, Sarah. You're a lifesaver. I told David it was policy, so he wouldn't obsess. And he's so sensitive lately. M. He doesn't deserve you. See you at the airport. Before we continue, take a second and share your thoughts so far on this story below. I read every single one. If you found messages like that on a shared device, would you confront them immediately or wait to see how far it goes? I didn't sleep. By 3 a.m., I was searching for private investigators in the Scottsdale/Phoenix area. I didn't want a generic firm. I wanted someone who handled discrete domestic matters. I found a man named Elias Thorne. His website was plain, but his reviews were stellar. I called him at what would be 1 a.m. his time. He picked up on the second ring. My name is David Miller. My wife is at the Biltmore in Phoenix. She's staying in a suite with a man named Marcus. I need to know what happens behind those doors. Elias didn't sound surprised. He sounded like a man who had heard this story 1,000 times. I can have a man on site by breakfast, Mr. Miller. I'll need the room number and a photo of your wife and this Marcus character. I sent him the wedding photo of Sarah and a cropped LinkedIn headshot of Marcus. I don't just want to know if they're together, I told him. I need proof that will hold up in a courtroom. I want her to have no way out. The next day was a blur of caffeine and cortisol. I went to work at my architectural firm, but I couldn't focus on blueprints. Every line I drew looked like the layout of a hotel suite. I kept imagining the common area Sarah had mentioned. Was Marcus sitting on the sofa? Was she wearing the emerald nightgown? Elias checked in around noon. Okay, I've spotted them. They aren't at the summit meetings, Mr. Miller. They're at the poolside bar. They've been there for 2 hours. Your wife is wearing a swimsuit that, well, let's just say it's not for networking. I'm getting long lens shots now. I'll send a batch over this evening. I sat in my office, the sun setting over the Chicago skyline, and felt the man I used to be slowly dying. The David Miller who trusted his wife, who believed in company policy, who thought hard work and loyalty were enough. That man was gone. In his place was someone cold, someone calculating, someone who was starting to understand the revenge part of my channel's name. At 6 p.m., the first batch of photos arrived. They were high resolution, crystal clear. There was Sarah laughing, really laughing, with her head thrown back, in a tropical drink in her hand. Marcus was leaning in close, his hand resting casually on her thigh. In another shot, they were clinking glasses, their eyes locked in a way that had nothing to do with North Region projections. But the worst one was a shot of them leaving the pool area. Marcus had his arm draped around her shoulders, and Sarah was leaning her head against his chest. They looked like a couple on their second honeymoon. They didn't look like two people worried about corporate excellence. They looked like they were celebrating my replacement. I looked at those photos for an hour, zooming in on Sarah's face. She looked younger. She looked free. And it occurred to me that she wasn't just cheating on me. She was erasing me. She was pretending our 12 years didn't exist, all while using my support to fund her getaway. My phone rang at 8 p.m. It was Sarah. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice from shaking. "Hey, babe," she said, sounding slightly breathless. "Just finished dinner with the board. It was so boring. I wish you were here to rescue me." The sheer audacity of the lie made my blood run cold. "Oh, yeah? What did you eat?" Um, just some grilled salmon at the hotel restaurant. I'm back in the suite now. Marcus is in the other room. I think he's already asleep. I'm going to do some reading and crash. I miss you." "I miss you too, Sarah," I said, the words feeling like ash in my mouth. "I miss the woman I thought you were." "What does that mean?" she asked, her voice sharpening. "Nothing. Just tired. Big project at the firm. Go get some rest. You have a big day tomorrow, right?" "Right," she said. "Love you." When she hung up, I threw my phone across the room. It hit the drywall with a satisfying thud, leaving a small dent. I would love to hear your point of view. Tell me what part hit you the hardest in my story and share your thoughts in the comments. For me, the hardest part was the second email from Elias that arrived at 2 a.m. "Mr. Miller, I think you should see this. I managed to get a shot through the suite's living room window before they closed the heavy drapes." I opened the attachment. It wasn't just a kiss. It was Sarah in the emerald nightgown standing on the balcony with Marcus. He was holding a bottle of champagne, and she was draped over the railing, looking out at the Phoenix lights. The separate bedrooms she'd insisted on were clearly a lie. In the background of the shot, through the open door of the master bedroom, and I could see her suitcase on the floor next to his. They weren't even trying to hide it from each other. They were living a whole other life, 3 states away, while I was sitting in the dark in Naperville, mourning a marriage that was already a corpse. Most men would have called her right then. Most men would have screamed and threatened and demanded she come home. But I knew Sarah. If I confronted her now, she'd stay in Phoenix. She'd move her money. She'd hire a shark of an attorney before she even stepped foot back in Illinois. No, I needed her to come home thinking everything was fine. I needed her to walk into the trap I was about to set. I spent the rest of the night printing every photo, every message, and every page of the real company policy. I organized them into a professional-looking binder. I even gave it a title page, Comprehensive Review of Corporate Excellence and Moral Turpitude. I also called my own attorney, a woman named Diane who specialized in high-asset divorces. I told her everything. I want the house, the car, and I want the maximum allowed under the infidelity clause in our prenup, I told her. "David, Illinois is a no-fault state," Diane reminded me, "but the prenup you both signed has a specific lifestyle and conduct addendum for her executive bonuses. If we can prove she used company funds for an affair, we can go after her deferred compensation." The last day of Sarah's trip, I didn't text her once. I wanted her to feel a flicker of unease. I wanted her to wonder if the silence from home was because I was busy or because I knew. She texted me, "Everything okay? Well, you haven't checked in." I waited 6 hours to reply. "Just focused on work. Can't wait to hear about the promotion." I spent that afternoon at the bank. We had a joint savings account with nearly $200,000 in it. Money we'd saved for a beach house in Florida. I didn't take it all. Diane told me that would look bad in court. But I moved my half into a private account she couldn't touch. I also revoked her access to my firm's credit cards, which she used for emergencies. The house felt different now. It didn't feel like a home anymore. It felt like a staging ground. I took down the wedding photos. I packed my clothes. I was moving out the day she moved back in. Sunday evening arrived with a torrential downpour. The rain lashed against the windows of the SUV as I sat in the cell phone lot at O'Hare. I watched the arrivals board. The Flight 442 from Phoenix landed. I didn't go to the gate. I waited by the curb. When she walked out, she looked radiant. She had a tan, her hair was perfectly styled, and she was wearing a new designer coat I didn't recognize. Marcus was nowhere to be seen. They had likely parted ways at baggage claim to maintain the professional facade. She hopped into the car and leaned over to kiss me. I turned my head and she caught my ear. Rough weekend? She asked, frowning. You have no idea, I said, pulling into traffic. Well, I have good news. The CEO loved my presentation. Marcus and I are basically guaranteed the regional co-lead positions. It's a huge pay jump, David. We can finally buy that house in Naples. That's great, Sarah. Really, a co-lead with Marcus. And I'm sure you two will be very close. The drive back to Naperville was silent. Sarah tried to tell me about the suites and the seminars, but her voice trailed off when she realized I wasn't responding. When we walked into the house, she dropped her bags in the foyer. Why is it so dark in here? And where are the photos on the mantel? I moved them, I said, walking toward the dining room. I thought we should have a meeting, a corporate excellence meeting. I sat at the head of the table. In front of me was the binder. I pushed it toward her. What is this, David? I'm exhausted. Can we do this tomorrow? Open it, Sarah. It's the new company policy. I think you'll find it very interesting. She sighed and annoyed. You're being dramatic, sigh, and flicked open the cover. I watched her face as she flipped through the pages. In the first page was the flight logs. The second was the message from M about the Mountain View balcony. By the time she got to the photos of her in the emerald nightgown, the color had completely drained from her face. She looked like she was going to faint. David, Marcus was he was having a breakdown. I was comforting him. In your lingerie? On a balcony in Phoenix? While you told me you were in separate bedrooms because of policy? I stood up, the chair scraping loudly against the hardwood. I checked the handbook, Sarah. There is no policy. You lied to my face for weeks. You planned this. It was a mistake, she screamed, the tears starting to flow. I was stressed, and he was there. And it didn't mean anything. It's just work stress. Work stress doesn't involve my wife's silk nightgown, I said, in my voice low and dangerous. And it doesn't involve lying to the person who has supported you for 12 years. I'm filing for divorce, Sarah. Diane has the papers. And because you used the company's corporate card to pay for Marcus's meals and incidentals while claiming they were business expenses, I've already sent a copy of this binder to your HR department's ethics hotline. Her eyes went wide with pure terror. You did what? David, you'll ruin my career. I won't get the promotion. I'll be fired. That sounds like a company policy problem, not a me problem, I replied. I picked up my suitcase, which I'd hidden in the closet. I'm staying at a hotel tonight. My lawyer will be in touch tomorrow. Oh, and Sarah? The emerald nightgown looked better on you when I thought you were mine. Now, it just looks cheap. The fallout was swifter than I expected. Sarah's firm didn't just deny her the promotion, they launched a full internal audit. They found that she and Marcus had been skimming from the travel budget for months to fund their trysts. Both were terminated for cause. Marcus's ex-wife found out about the affair through the grapevine and used the evidence I'd gathered to reopen their custody agreement. Sarah lost everything, the job, the husband, and the reputation she'd spent a decade building. She moved into a small apartment in a less desirable part of town, her VP dreams replaced by the reality of entry-level consulting work. I didn't feel happy about it. There's no joy in watching the person you love destroy themselves, but I felt a sense of justice. She thought she could use her career as a weapon against our marriage, so I used her career to set myself free. It's been a year since that night in the dining room. I live in a loft now, overlooking the river. The silence here is different. It's light and it's full of possibility. I've started dating again, but this time I'm looking for someone who doesn't need policies to tell the truth. Betrayal changes you. It makes you sharper, more observant, and perhaps a little colder. But it also teaches you that your worth isn't tied to someone else's ability to be faithful. Thank you for staying with me through this journey of family secrets and revenge. If this story touched you, or if you've ever had to uncover a policy that was actually a lie, please hit that like button and subscribe. Share your overall thoughts on David's choice in the comments below. Did he go too far, or did he do exactly what was necessary? I read every single one of your stories. Thank you for watching and stay strong out there.